Hi, everyone. Like Andy said, I'm Elina Lin. I'm a senior UX designer at Amplitude.
Hi, I'm Ren. I need to confess that we do not have 1 million users because we're a B2B companies and we have 8,000 weekly querying users. So at Amplitude, I led the design effort for a product add-on called Taxonomy, and which was sold to many, many accounts and influenced the total $1 million revenue. So that's what Andy was referring to. And I contribute the success of the product add-on largely to the amount of user research that we were doing as a company on both product team and the design team. So that's why we're really excited to share with you today some of the learnings and some of the tactics hopefully you can apply tomorrow to your own user research. And I'll hand it back to the fabulous Elina to kick us out.
Thank you, Ran. Our topic today really will help you be more effective in your user research. And what we're focusing on is really at the very beginning, which is recruiting for your target end user. And between me and Ran, we've conducted hundreds and hours of user research and really iterated on a lot of creative approaches. And we've put this slides together to help you also just apply it to your own work, and hopefully you'll see results immediately. So I want to start off with a quick story of when user recruiting actually failed at Amplitude. To give you some context, Amplitude is a B2B product analytics company, and what we do is we provide a product analytics platform so that we can allow our customers to dig in deep to the quantitative data and track, monitor, explore their user behaviors. And so when you're a user on Amplitude, there's a lot of charts and analyses. This is an example of an organization that has a lot of charts already available, so you're getting a lot of value when you go into Amplitude. And so as a products team, we are very, we have a strong belief that there's a correlation between the more charts, the more value the user receives, and in turn, we as a company is more successful. And so there is this problem of users that we've identified. There are users who come into the app on a regular basis, so they're pretty active, but they're not actually creating any charts. And so this is an area that we were really interested in focusing on to dig deep into their user needs and what are their goals. Why are they not clicking on this button to create a chart? So that presents a really great opportunity for us to gather their user needs and their personal values, or what are they actually experiencing in the app? Why are they challenged? What's blocking them from creating a chart for themselves? And like Sherlock Holmes, he emphasizes on how important it is to do your research. So we set out to do our research. And you might think it's really simple. You just get a list of users and then contact them. It's a two-step process. We're ready to go, right? Wrong. User research, we actually found out that through this failure, I created a pretty generic email where, it's just kind of check off the list. Would you like to come to give us some feedback, share some insights? Here's a link to sign up. But it was really the problem around not having an objective, and that kind of set off a whole cascade of problems later on. It wasted a lot of time in the user research studies. We talked to users during the interviews and realized, you're not actually the right user. So not having an objective was a pretty problematic thing that we could have solved in the beginning. Feedback was also really broad because we didn't have an objective, and so people were kind of sharing insights that were all over the place, and we didn't really know what to focus on. There was really no pattern. And then on the other hand, a lot of our insights were skewed because these were users who were a lot louder, they were very opinionated, and we didn't get insights from people who were silently suffering. And then finally, the ratio of people who signed up and people that we emailed was pretty bad. We had a pretty low response rate, and we assumed that it was probably because this is not a very personable email. And so all of these challenges in recruiting for users for your study, you might encounter them in your own organization. So whether you're a B2C company or B2B, this is prevalent in any research study. You might not have access to your users. You might, if you're a B2B company, you might want to recruit users who have a specific skill set. And so having a domain knowledge, how do you find those users who have that specific skill set? You might, if you're a startup, you might not have a lot of users, so you don't want to spam your users and then scare all of them away before getting users who might want to talk to you. And so you want to be really mindful of how you reach out to them. And then finally, all of these challenges may bias you towards people that you already know, people that you're comfortable in reaching out to. Maybe they're family or friends. Maybe they're people that you've already developed relationships with. So it's really important that you are aware of your own bias. And so this is a lot of information. We didn't even get to user research. We're just trying to get them to talk to us. How can we make this a lot easier? Well, take a deep breath. We're here to share with you. It's not a 2-step process, but it's a 4-step process. And we want to ground ourselves to the goal of recruiting for users. We basically want to find the best representation of the target user that we're trying to talk to. And so the very first step is to align yourself and your team around a clear objective. And to go back to our previous example, we were trying to figure out why active users did not create a chart. So it could be a simple statement of like what you're trying to figure out and then who you're trying to talk to. So what we were trying to figure out were what are the user needs, goals, and pain points, and then who they were are weekly active users who never enter the chart creation flow. And this is kind of like obvious. I've kind of drilled this multiple times already, but just this simple statement can really help you focus and lead you to the next step, which is to build a recruitment criteria. And what I mean by recruitment criteria, it's a list of behavior and characteristics that can help you extract that list of users from your database. So going back to that same example, we use that objective, which is just a statement, and kind of brainstormed around like what are things that we can list out and then translate to something that is tangible. So one is their user journey. Where are they in their user journey? These are users who signed up in the last 3 months. The retention rate is basically they are weekly active users. Their engagement is very low. They're just browsing the pages. They're not doing anything. And then finally, we wanted to talk to users who were enterprise because these were also users who exhibited behaviors of low engagement. So you're not limited to these 4 categories. There are actually a lot of other ways that you can create that recruitment criteria. What I didn't talk about were the rightmost 2, which are expertise. So if you have users who are really skilled, or they're either beginners or they're really skilled, that's maybe something that you want to look for. And then also, if you have a paid model, maybe you're interested in users who are only on the freemium plan, maybe they're on the trial plan, and finally, if they're paying, maybe you're interested in those. So these are just some examples, but you can get really creative and iterate on the process as you're conducting your study. So once you have that criteria, what do you do with that? I like to use the analogy, which is recruiting for users is a lot like fishing. So when you're finding your users, you also want to keep in mind of like where are they? What kind of pond are they in? Are they in like a lake? Are they in a sea? Maybe they're by themselves. And also that might also help you think about like what bait might you, if you want to stretch this analogy a little longer, like what is your bait? How can you incentivize them to say yes, and so on. So here are just examples. Maybe you're trying to find a rare kind of user who doesn't want to talk to you, or maybe they're like, you just want a broad spectrum. So it's a great way to kind of, share this important, it's a good analogy for your team to also think about when it comes to recruiting. So fishing for your users, I want to say we are actually really blessed with our own product. We use our own product, Amplitude, to take our users and basically extract them from our database. And I'll show you an example here. So this is what it looks like in the UI, and we basically translated that criteria into Amplitude and then got a CSV out of this. So when we looked at the user journey, we were trying to say, like, okay, 3 months ago was March 12th, so who are the users who signed up then? Retention are weekly active users, and we have users who are active anytime in the last 7 days. For engagement, we have this event called Create New Charts, and we basically set it to 0, so they have never done this. And then finally, we have a preset of enterprise customers that we've imported into Amplitude, and so we're able to set that as a filter. So from that, we got this list. I don't have the emails here, but basically that's the meaty piece of it. And then you are ready to email them. But if you don't have a product like Amplitude, don't worry, you're okay. You can ask for help, and there might be people on your team who are able to extract that list for you and just present it. Hey, can I find these lists of users? Can you help me maybe the data scientist can query a SQL, have a SQL query to take that out, or an engineer or product manager is more closely sitting to the database. And don't forget to leverage your team. So the marketing team might already be sending out emails to a specific type of user. The customer success, they are constantly interacting with lots of users. They are definitely a team that you can ask for help. And the sales team similarly also talks to users very personally. And beyond just the direct approach, we have opportunities for users who really want to provide feedback, and we want to give them the opportunity to give it even if we don't ask for it. So one example here on the very left, we have Segment, who created this user research program. They created a website where users who do have feedback can sign up for a future call. You can also provide in-app feedback by adding a button during a flow, and they could just type it in. Or you can have a screener survey where people can share like the criteria or their characteristics to you, and you can later filter out who you want to talk to. So now I'm going to hand this over to Ran, who will tell us what to do after you've gotten that list of email.
All right. So now I'm going to talk about how to actually reach out to your user and hopefully save some time during the process. Now that you've fished for a bunch of users, and you're not going to talk to any of them unless you reach out. So here's where the effective email comes in. An effective email is actually quite helpful. They'll give you a higher conversion rate for people to actually open your email. And they will also probably give you more yeses from the responses. And let me walk you through. If you think about it, every email actually starts with a subject. That's the first thing your user or your participants will see. Here are some examples that we've used for our user research. They're all pretty effective. So the general guideline here is to make it as clear and contain all the information that you're asking for. For example, are you asking for a 30-minute user research call, or are you just asking them to spend some time for a survey or leave a review? Things like that. And include the time commitment if it's really, really short. It always helps for your email to perceive as low effort. Also, if you're offering any incentives, make sure to include that in the subject line. It always helps with the clicks. Also, you can have fun and experiment with emojis, and that will help your email to stand out in their inboxes. Let's move on to the actual email. The first impression is important here. You want your email to appear personable and professional, not creepy, hopefully. So include a professional looking photo in your email program, whatever program you're using, and introduce yourself in the very beginning. So you're not just a stranger, I'm cold emailing you, I am a UX designer at Amplitude, whatever that means. And be really specific. That's where you tie your research objective to your users. So they need to understand what you're trying to get out of this research. So be clear in here, and also keep it really short. We're all busy. No one is going to have the patience to read through a long paragraph of text. So keep it really short. And you also don't want your participants to have to figure out what are the next steps. Make sure you add a very clear call to action at the end of your email. That's usually a link. And for most of the user research recruiting email, your success is to actually schedule meetings with people. But scheduling is painful. I'm pretty sure you all would resonate. You've all been through the pain of having to email your friends or coworker back and forth, go through this email thread that's 20 emails long to try to schedule something. But luckily, you can automate this process using tools and software service. And I'm going to show you an example that this is how I'm scheduling all my user research calls. I'm using a tool called Calendly, and it's pretty much an email scheduling software that will integrate with your own calendar, and they will figure out when you're free and available for doing user research. And once your participant click on the link you send them in your email, they'll see something like that, if you can see, which is a list of available times. They can then just select a time that works the best for them. And both you and your participant will get a calendar invite afterward once it's selected. The software will also handle all the rescheduling and cancellations in the future if needed. You can also include all the information you need to give the participant as well in the calendar invite. For example, the location. Include your office address, or if it's an in-person study, and a virtual meeting link in the location field if it's a remote study, and include a thank you message and any additional information, such as how to get into your office, how to collect rewards, things like that, so that you don't have to worry about sending this information out as separate emails before the participants arrive. Now your email is ready to send. I don't have fancy advice and tools for you to use this. I actually recommend you to send it using BCC. What I find is this is the best way and most time-saving way to send recruiting email. You don't have to send it like individually. If you try to send 50 emails at one time individually, it's such a pain. And you also don't need to spend a lot of time tinkering with those fancy email blast softwares. When you're like reaching out for user research, you're probably only sending it out to 50 to 100 people, and you don't need any software to do that. Just make sure you paste your email addresses in the BCC field. You don't want to accidentally expose all your participants' personal email. Since we're on this note, make sure before you send, actually change any personalized content in your email. And hopefully you can learn from my mistake when I forget to do so, and I need to be reminded that I put my customer's name wrong, and that is very embarrassing. Not only my coworkers are aware, I have to send a follow-up email and apologize and say, I do know what your name is. And again, very embarrassing. I don't think a lot of bad things that's gonna happen to you, only it's very embarrassing. And I hope you don't make the same mistake. And what happens if you send out the recruiting email, but people didn't get back to you? It's really simple. All you need to do is following up with them. It's really funny. This is something I find extremely effective, but nobody does it. What I usually do is I wait for 3 business days, and then I will shoot them a quick email if they didn't schedule anything with me. And the message can be whatever, but I usually say, I understand you're busy, but I just didn't really want you to forget about my email. Things like that. This will actually bump up your success rate to almost 80%. It's extremely effective, and it doesn't cost you any time. And then I want to share with you 2 more tips. Hopefully that will get you even more participants to say yes. The first one is, if you to start building personal relationships with your users and customers. This is extremely important if you work for a B2B company like me and Elina. You can't just go on the street and ask people, hey, can you do a user test? Usually you need some sort of domain knowledge. So once you get a hold of your participant, you talk to them. Make sure you keep your relationship warm. For example, if you design something based on their feedback, or if you ship something, or if they reported to you a bug, let them know that it's been helpful. I'm sure everyone would like to learn that their feedback was useful, and I'm pretty sure they will be more than likely to want to help you again in the future. This one is interesting. So email is the most obvious and the easiest way to reach out to your user, but it might not be the most effective way. As we learned today, we want to make it as easy as possible for our participants to say yes to you. So we actually ran an experiment with using app queues. So we designed a in-product pop-up that will show up on a page that we're thinking of doing a redesign. So it's extremely easy for a user to participate. All they need to do is click on the pop-up. They're there on the page. They understand what I'm redesigning. And we got a lot of success with this pop-up. It gives us continuous streams of user research calls scheduled in the next 3 weeks. And if you don't have something like app queues, a lot of companies have access to tools like Intercom or Drift. You can also experiment with that as well. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Elina again.
Thank you so much, Rand. That was very helpful. So just to recap on what we learned today, there are 4 steps to effectively recruit for your users for your study, and we really want this to be seamless and easy so that you're just focused really on the user research. The first step is to align yourself on a clear objective, which will lead into the second step of creating that recruitment criteria so that you can build out those characteristics. And then third, fish for your users, which you can use a variety of tools like Amplitude or another product analytics company, or you could talk to people on your team to help you get that list of contacts. And then finally, reaching out to them. Rand went over a ton of different approaches where users can are more likely to say yes, whether it's through emailing, automating that process, or through a personal relationship relationship. Thank you so much. We are also totally happy to chat offline. If you have any feedback, comments, questions, totally happy to answer and understand your problem. And with that, I'll hand it back to Andy. Thank you.